Okay, welcome to another episode of Seeds of Music, the web's #1 resource for independent artists. I'm your host, Kyle Williams, and this is our weekly web show where I bring on music industry professionals and successful independent artists to talk about the ways to build a bigger, stronger fan base and sell more music online and at shows. Now, real quick, we have an iTunes channel. Just head over to iTunes and subscribe by typing in Seeds of Music Rise Above the Noise. You search for that and click the subscribe button. You'll get all the episodes downloaded straight to your device. And before you leave that, please leave a rating and a review for the show. This will really help us out. It'll improve our ranking within iTunes, which will give the show more exposure and will help us help more artists and get bigger and better interviews as well. I'll also give you a shout out in the next episode. So if you leave a review, I'm going to see who wrote it and I'm going to recite that back in the next episode just to say thanks for that. On today's episode, we have Joy Ike, who is a full-time independent artist. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk with her about why, for her, an email mailing list beats selling CDs at shows. Let's jump right in. All right, Joy, thank you for joining us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I wonder if you have ever heard of Monongahela. Have you heard of Monongahela?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That's actually where my dad's from. It's probably like 2,000 people there, maybe less.
I've never been there, so I'm not sure.
Hey, well,
but yeah, I mean...
Not surprised.
Yeah.
So, I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show. It was really cool that one of our previous guests, Johnny Rodgers of Cinder Talk, actually introduced us. I'm curious, like, how did you meet Johnny?
Yeah, if I wasn't normal, I'd probably be one of his stalkers. I will at least say that. I love his music so much. We met, must have been 3 years ago, a show in Hamden, Connecticut, which is where he's from. His brother owns a really awesome venue down there called the Outer Space.
Oh, I didn't
know. Yeah, it's a really great venue. So we played a show there. It must have been an open mic night way back. And then we reconnected at the end of last year at another show I played opened for his CD release concert. And so we've just been connected since then. And I'm just a huge fan of what he does.
Oh, nice. Well,
yeah.
That it's just like I don't think it's cool just to have like someone from on the show and then I'm led to another artist from that. It just kind of proves like the power of human connection in this business.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of it too. You know, you just never know who you're going to meet and you never know how many people that whole 6 degrees of separation thing. I honestly think it's probably like 2 degrees at this point.
Okay, so how many degrees till Kevin Bacon? That's a question.
Well, I don't know. I'm not necessarily a fan of Kevin Bacon either, so I'm not.
It might be there. It's probably there. You given enough degrees, I'm sure everybody's connected to Kevin Bacon in some way.
How did that even start? Who came up with that?
I don't know, but like a quick Google search would probably answer that question. I don't know. Like it makes you think. It makes you think that like someone just I don't know, like just randomly came up with the idea one day. Maybe they had it in a dream. Where they saw this like web of connections to Kevin Bacon. But anyways, I'm kind of going off on a tangent. So you are a full-time independent artist, making all of your living from music. How long have you been full-time?
Well, I've been full-time, we're almost in May now, so it'll be six years in May. And it will, I would honestly say that the last 2 years have been more sustainable. They've been a little bit more, they've been the safer two of the 6 years. The first couple of years were just very hard, me trying to figure out what worked, what didn't work, and just trying to make ends meet. So, I mean, it's always a journey. I think it's always an uphill climb, but it's been a crazy 6 years.
Well, we'll talk more about how you actually figured it all out, getting everything to work.
Yeah.
So what was it like before you became full-time? I mean, what's your story?
Well, I was working this job that I loved. I was working as a publicist at a book publishing company, and I was communicating with our authors on a regular basis. We would work on releasing books, and I had the responsibility of putting together press kits for the authors whose books we put out, writing press releases, booking book tours for the authors, setting up radio and television interviews. And for as long as I can remember, I've always really enjoyed the idea of, kind of like the A&R aspect of developing someone and helping them find their audience and helping them find their style. And I just always thoroughly enjoyed that idea of launching something. And so, I'd be working there during the day, but at nighttime I'd be working on my own music, and I was just very new to the music scene, even in my own city at that time. So I don't think at that point I really knew what I wanted from music, but I knew how much I loved it, and I knew that I enjoyed writing, songwriting. So little did I know by the time I was done, 3 years into working that job, how much working for authors and helping them with their PR was going to significantly help me in promoting my own music and learning how to run like the business aspect of it.
Yeah. So you kind of had that early introduction to public relations and getting your message out there. But before you started working for this PR company, I mean, what were you doing with music? I mean, what really got you kickstarted down the path?
That's a weird question because I always feel like a late bloomer. I took piano lessons as a kid, as every kid does, but stopped for
I didn't
probably 8 years. Every kid except for you,
except for losers. I think I was on violin, but it was when I was a little bit older.
A little older.
I didn't stick with it.
I don't know. So I didn't pick up music again until college. Probably my senior year of college, and it really wasn't until after I graduated and started working at that other job that I was like seriously songwriting, and I just fell in love with it. I'm a huge fan of storytelling, and I just love that music is just one big story. Everyone has a story to tell, and many people do it through music, and I'm always in awe of how you're able to put a story into a song and it can relate to people that you've never met before who are kind of dealing with the same thing, or at least interpret your song to be something that they're dealing with as well. Yeah. So I've always thought that that's been a really beautiful thing about music, and that's kind of what connects me to it and what makes me love it and continue.
Well, I really relate to your story because I'm a late bloomer too. It wasn't until after college that I started made the decision to be more serious with music.
Okay.
So what? I mean, once you started down this path, so you've already attended college. What did you actually attend college for?
Well, I attended for communications. I started as a computer science major, but and that definitely just wasn't me and wasn't my style as much as I.
I thought about it. I took JavaScript.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I had a Java and C++, and I had Pascal too, which is something they were still teaching.
Yeah, I remember doing Pascal, but that was in high school for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So
I just had a flood of memories come back.
It's so funny. Yeah, but it just never stuck, and I noticed how much I love to promote things, and I honestly don't know that I really took a lot away from college. As it relates to my major, but I had a lot of internships, and so that's
a can
kind
of worms, by the way. That we could have a whole nother interview on college, and I think we're both that's similar experiences. I studied fine arts with a focus in 3D graphics and animation.
Okay.
So it's what did I take away? There's a lot I could say about it, but but so you went through the college. You said, okay, well, now music is my passion, and this music is really touching me, and I want to make a serious career of that. So, what changed about you or your situation when you actually started to make a living? I mean, what was the significant difference there?
Oh man. A significant difference. Well, I found that when you have to pay your bills, you start to get really good at asking people for money.
Oh yeah. So you get over the hump of feeling uncomfortable, selling or
right.
Asking
and
for
that
support, basically.
Ditto. That played such a huge role in things. It was I was playing shows while I was working my other job, but I was doing it just for the enjoyment. And of course I still play music for the enjoyment, but whenever you whenever you're not really thinking about the business aspect of things, and you're just not thinking about it, and I realized, the first week after I left my job, and the whole time I was second guessing myself. I was just like, what did I do? And my parents thought I was just crazy.
Yeah,
So I
that's
was just
typical
sitting,
then.
yeah, of course, yeah. But I was sitting in my apartment, and I was just like sitting at this little office table, this little corner of my living room that I designated for, work, music, and all that stuff. And I was just sitting there, and I woke up one morning, and I honestly, like, it must have been like me just sitting there for about 30 minutes figuring out, well, what am I going to do next, and that's when I was just like, okay, we've got to get a game plan together. Um, you need to know what you're doing when you wake up in the morning, and you need to, figure out what the month looks like. At that point, I was just about to put out an album, my first album. And I was like, okay, I need like a marketing plan. I know how to put together a marketing plan, so now I needed to do that for myself. And so all these ideas started coming about how I needed to like structure my day, structure
Yeah,
my months, my week,
yeah.
to start to like make moves and to see things happen. But yeah, so I really think, when you're at a point when you have nothing to lose, you've already kind of like lost everything. You just kind of have to go up, and that was a huge thing.
So, do you believe in a plan B?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I
Always.
I thought you were gonna say no. Wow.
No, no, you need a plan B. If
Oh
there's
wow.
anything I've learned, especially because, I mean, you're essentially working for yourself, but you're always working with other people. You're working with other artists, you're working with videographers, you're working with venues. All those different people. They're all like quote unquote business partners. So my plan B has come into play so much more than my plan A. I'm
Well,
gonna have to
well,
say.
I was actually meaning the question more in a larger sense, like
Okay.
music or not.
Oh, music or
Music or plan.
not?
I'm talking for a position of like the parent who's like,
I see.
well, you better well, you want to have a plan B just in case music doesn't work out. You know what I
Right.
mean? Which is,
Yeah.
so
Well,
what do you
in
think
in
about
that
that?
bigger, broader sense, yes, I still believe in a plan B.
Oh, okay.
But I think sometimes we get really we kind of use it as a safety, and because of that, we don't really go fully for our plan A,
Hmm.
when it comes to those big things. And I think that that can kind of be dangerous because that can limit you and how much you dream. If
Okay.
you're always kind of you have that scapegoat and you're always trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to make it work if it doesn't work.
So it's
So,
like in that sense, like Plan B is kind of like a fear-based thing, because you're like afraid
ditto.
that Plan A don't work out, so you're trying to
Right,
yeah make a Plan B or C or D. But
right. No, totally.
so
Yeah.
just to get in more specifics about
Mm.
what you've been doing as a full-time musician, uh, your mailing list. I know that we had talked over email, and you were telling me that you felt like a mailing list was much more valuable than having fans actually buy CDs at the end of your show.
Mhm.
So why
Mhm.
exactly is that?
Well, I think, as artists, one of our primary goals is to not only play shows that are enjoyable, but to be able to leave with something in our pocket. You want to leave with having sold tickets and you want to make money. But I think that there are times when, many times, I would even dare say most of the time, we let that get in the way of, we let that immediate goal get in the way of long-term goals. And I think we get to a point where everything where we start to say, okay, well, this opportunity is more beneficial because it pays more,
Hmm.
or this opportunity is more beneficial,
Yeah.
for some other reason. But I've really learned, if anything, I've learned over these past 6 years is that um, most every opportunity that we as artists take needs to be leading somewhere. Nothing exists in isolation, and because of that, you can't be in a place where you're just thinking about, well, what is it that I can get out of this specific performance or
So
this
thinking
specific
short term.
opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Short term kind of sabotages your future. I personally think, and the thing talking specifically about the email newsletter. you can have a fan that leaves and buys your CD, and if they don't sign up for your newsletter, there's no solid guarantee that they're ever going to come to a show again. There's no solid guarantee that they're going to stay in contact with what you're doing, that they're going to be, following you on the social media or any of that stuff. But the beauty of an email address is that it gives you direct contact with your fans, for the life of the relationship, however long that email address is still active, or, however long your fan stays subscribed. The beauty of an email being more important than selling product is that if you have someone's email, not only are they going to just be staying posted about what's happening with your music,
Yeah.
They're going to be there for the long term, which means that they're buying tickets for upcoming shows. They'll buy your music off iTunes, hopefully if they didn't buy hard copy, or they'll order it offline. They'll pass you on to other people. That's been one of my favorite things for newsletters. I'll send out a newsletter to my fan base, and they'll forward it on to a friend in any given city that I'm going to, even if they're not in that city. They might know someone else. But, my favorite thing about the newsletter is that it's just a constant reminder to people that I exist. There's so much, people are getting so much information via email, via Facebook,
Yeah.
Twitter, Instagram, all of that. It's hard to keep up with what's in your feed. You just can't expect everyone to read everything, every Facebook status update.
Yeah.
And, some
They
cases
won't.
people aren't, yeah, they just won't. They won't read every tweet. They might not even read your email. They might not even read it. So, there's always that chance.
But seeing the headline in
Right.
the email box, they could be, oh yeah. It's just like this idea of keeping you as the artist in front
Right,
of the mind
right.
of your fans, because you're competing for their attention
Right.
in a noisy world.
Ditto. Yeah, and it's all about that. It's like just remembering there are so many other artists. This person who knows how many shows they go to on a monthly basis. They know so many other people, but there's got to be some way that I, as the artist, can make myself stand out to this fan so that they remember me, so that they're continually staying posted about what I'm doing when I'm in their town. And the great thing about email lists is that it's just a great way for you to get more gigs as an artist. You put something out there and you tell people, I'm trying to book a date, and someone knows of an art festival going on in their town. They can pass it on to you. Or if they want to host a house concert, all those little things that add up. And eventually those are the things that make you living as a musician sustainable, because those are the things that that communication with your fans is what brings in the income. It brings in the ticket sales. It brings in the house concerts. And it's the thing that's able to subsidize all those other shows and all those other events and things that are happening for you and around you and with your music.
So what would you say is the secret to using the email list that gets fans to do all of that? I mean, is it the communication, or is it something deeper than that?
I think it's definitely the communication, but it's not just communication behind the computer. It's communication with your fans at your shows. Going back to that whole storytelling thing, I think every artist operates differently, but I think it's so important to help your artists create a personal attachment to your music. I go to so many concerts, and as most artists do, and people don't go to concerts to hear songs that they could hear on their iPod.
Yeah.
They go to build a connection with the artist, and so it's so important whenever you're at a show to genuinely care, and genuinely go out of your way to communicate with your fans, whether that's on stage or off stage.
Well, how do you do that exactly?
Well, I think it's really important, before the show, to be out in the room. A lot of artists kind of do the whole green room thing. And again, like I said, every artist is different. So I think different things work for different people. But I think it's so important.
I don't think the rock star syndrome works for independent artists. I think it's
well, yeah, definitely. That's a great term, I think. But when you're out there and you're hanging out with your fans, you're talking to them, not just after the show when they're at your merch table buying your CDs. You're just out there just chilling with them. I think that's so
maybe
important.
Listening to the opening acts in the crowd.
Yeah, ditto. Sitting like among the crowd, hanging out with them. If you see a familiar face, someone who came to your show last time you were in that town, I think you owe it to that person to go up and say, hey, thanks for coming out again. I mean, you don't have to do it, but just those little things show your fans that you care about the fact that they're there. And it's such a small thing, but I mean, the truth is, if they're not there, then you're not able to make a living off of what you're doing. So you need your fans. You absolutely need your fans, and they give you so much more than you can ever give them.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it's really important for artists to remember that when they're at their shows and when they're not at their shows. My biggest pet peeve, as someone who subscribes to a lot of newsletters from of some of my favorite artists and friends and just
Yeah.
random people that I like to keep tabs on, is they'll send a newsletter, and then a year later I won't have heard of them, but they'll send a newsletter say, "Hey, we're
I'm
raising
playing
money
a
for
show.
Kickstarter."
Yeah, I need
Yeah, I'm
something.
ditto. Yeah,
Yeah.
whether it be I'm playing a show, but even worse, like I'm doing a Kickstarter campaign, and we really need your support. Can you give us some money? I'm just like, no, I'm not giving
No.
you anything.
I'm not giving you shit. Get out of here. Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, they totally fell off the map. I don't know what's going on with them. Like, I'm
Isn't that
not
common sense
invested.
though? But
Yeah,
music, like well, I'd say anyone doesn't have
it
most
happens all the
most people
time.
don't have common sense. I kind of sound like a grumpy old man there, but
Well, it's the truth.
but it
But
does,
no,
doesn't it seem like common sense? But most musicians, they just don't realize. Well, I mean, did I actually show that I cared? Care
right,
about this fan by never trying to talk to them.
right,
Would you call some? I mean, how does it feel to never call someone and then call
yeah.
them up one day and say I need money. That's basically
Ugh,
in order to create this
yeah,
that may provide value for you. But it's like I
yeah.
haven't done the human thing outside of that.
I just had this happen to me 45 minutes ago. Someone called me
Really?
up. Yeah, and it's like it wasn't asking for money, but it was asking for a favor. Meanwhile, I hadn't talked to this person in a while, and that's the only thing, that they communicate with me about. And I just like I don't know how to deal with it anymore, but it's a huge pet peeve because it's like you just can't do that. I mean, that's not even how normal like relationships work. So,
Hmm.
how we relate to people on an interpersonal one-on-one way is just how we should relate to our fans.
Hmm.
So I totally like sincerely believe that.
Okay.
So but yeah, so that totally like from the show translates to your mailing list, and I think when people know who you are on a personal level, and again, it's impossible for every fan to really know you personally. It's impossible for you to know them personally, but I mean, you can do your best because they are the most important thing to you, whether you realize it or not.
Okay.
So you do what you can.
So, we don't have a ton of time left in the interview, but I really want to break down, like maybe like simplify this process from start to
Hmm.
finish. So, like any artist listening, they can go out there and get their list set up and then know
Hmm.
what to do from there. So, how do you collect emails?
Well, the first thing I would say is get a mailing list provider. So whether you use MailChimp or Emma or my favorite, your mailing list provider, that's what
Okay.
it's called, ymlp.com.
And
Um,
you also have do you have a link to that from your art from your blog,
from
Art
my blog,
Grassrootsy?
I do, yeah. And maybe I'll also send you a link if you want to use it for
By
the
the way,
script
guys,
commission.
like if you're listening, she has a music marketing advice blog for independent artists called Grassrootsy. That's why I mentioned it. She has a
Hmm.
link to. You said you had a link to the mailing service provider,
Yeah,
right?
it's the YMLP.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you
but it's just
guys,
grassrootsy.com.
okay. Yeah, we'll have it linked up below. We'll probably put the link directly to the mailing list provider for you as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, you get a mailing list provider, and then what's the next step?
Yeah, provider, something that will make your newsletters look professional when you're actually mailing them out. And then create just a simple sign up form. It has just like three things: the person's name, the city and the state they're from, and their email address. So it has those a list that lets people enter in their basic information.
Okay.
Um, and the next thing you want to do is while you're at your shows, probably in the middle of your set or closer to the end of your set, just hold that up and just tell your fans,
Hold
"Hey,
what
I
up?
passed
The clipboard?
your mailing list. Yeah, a
Okay.
clipboard with your mailing list sign up form on it, and be like, I'm passing this around. Please don't feel obligated to sign it, but if you'd like to stay posted on when I'll be next in your city, the next show that I have, I will definitely shoot you an email out. I won't be sending regular emails, maybe just monthly, so I won't over spam you or anything,
Okay.
but just want you to sign up. And a side note, I think it's really important for artists to know that they shouldn't ever have someone sign up to the newsletter out of obligation. I think that's the worst thing because you get someone on your email, you have an email address, but they don't want to be on it.
They're
They're
gonna
not going to open it.
unsubscribe.
They're going to
Yeah.
unsubscribe. It's just like a waste of your time and theirs.
Yeah.
So never force anyone. You can't really force anyone, but
Yeah.
some people will sign up. Some
They
people
might
will
give
give
you,
you
if they don't want to, they might give you a like their
their grandma's email address.
yeah, like their spam email that they used to sign up for free crap.
Right, definitely. Yeah. So once you kind of make that whole disclaimer, pass the newsletter around. The thing about leaving your newsletter on the back merch table is that some people will sign up, but if you pass it around during your set, you'll get at least 4 or 5 times more emails than you would ever
Okay,
if you just
awesome.
left it on the back table, which is why it's so important. And then when you get back after the show, whether it be that night or the following day, send a welcome email to anyone who signed up. Just short 2 paragraphs. Say, hey, thanks for coming out to the show. If you didn't get a copy of the CD, you can grab it off the store, and then
Okay.
hyperlink a link to the store,
Okay.
and just keep it real simple. Things we'll be back in the area on this date if you happen to know when you're going to be back,
Okay.
and we'll be sending out monthly updates, and just include links to your Facebook, Twitter, and all those accounts,
Okay.
so that your mailing list subscribers can transfer over to
Okay.
your other social media things.
Okay.
And that's basically it. And then from there on, you're sending out a monthly newsletter to let people know what you do. But the whole thing is just follow through. I think a lot of times people will grab newsletters and they won't follow up with
Yeah.
the subscribers until like several weeks later, or they won't follow up at all, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
I usually recommend that artists have something called an autoresponder, which is an automated
yeah.
sequence, so you have
Mhm.
usually you offer something for free, for the sign up, like a
Yeah.
free track. They sign up, they get the track right away, and then maybe a day later you send like like an autoresponder will send an email that thanks them, or just shows that you care and that you send an email
Right.
back to them. You personalize it to where you're talking to just that particular person. But autoresponder
Ditto.
is very, 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 very powerful thing.
I'm a huge fan of those, huge fan of those. So yeah, I mean, emails are super simple, and I think it's important not to get discouraged. I think artists get really discouraged if they only get a few emails on their list. What if you get 2 emails at a show? It's not a lot, but those 2 people want to be on your list,
It's
so
normal.
they're important. And
Yeah.
it's
It's like
right,
no one's gonna get 20 emails. I'd be surprised if someone got,
yeah,
10, 15, 20 emails on their first show.
right, ditto. And the emails they'll add up over time. It might not happen immediately, but it will. And the more and more people you accumulate, the bigger your mailing list is, and the more things will happen.
Hmm.
Like I totally promise you, to people who are watching this, the more fans that you have on your email list, the more things you'll be able to do. Like the more your music will grow, and it's pretty incredible. It'll take time, and that's the thing.
Hmm.
I think sometimes we just get annoyed by things that take time to happen, but anything that happens too quick is not going to last. That's like my I don't know what you want to call it. You know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, you're
My thing
against
of the
it.
day.
Thought
That's
of the
the word
day.
of the day.
Word of the day. Yeah. Don't go for instant gratification.
Yeah, totally.
Don't expect instant results. It's like the
Yeah.
same thing plagues everyone, whether you're a musician or not. Like you want
That's true.
things to not be hard and to not take a
Yeah,
lot of work and to happen quickly.
right.
But anything that lasts long is like, takes a
That's
while to actually build up.
truly, truly.
So
Yeah.
there's a few last questions I wanted to cram in here for a second, but I had actually thought of a question, forgot it, so we're going to move past that. If I remember it, I'll bring it back up. But oh yeah, I remembered it now. There we go. Uh, do you feel like musicians give up too easily when they run into resistance?
Yes.
There we go. That's the answer to that question.
Sometimes I feel like I'm too hard on people and too hard on my grassroots readers. But sometimes I'm just like, okay, you need to step it up and stop being a baby
Yeah,
because
I think you're totally right. You're totally right. Sometimes
yeah, And
Sometimes,
most
like,
of the, it's
yeah.
true. And what's funny too is that most of the grassroots readers are male. So then I'm just like, okay, Joy, you can't be soft because 70% of the readers are guys. But yeah, I mean, the real deal is that I wrote this blog and I forgot what the title of the blog is, what the title of the post was, but it was just like
Quit being a
about
pansy.
that was included.
Yeah.
But it was something about like I think it was like four things that sabotage like your music career.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that really sabotages people's career, aside from disappearing forever, like we said before, and then reappearing all of a sudden, is that people jump ship a lot, you know?
Yeah.
You're with one band and then, that doesn't go well, so you decide that you're just going to lay low for a few months, and then you pop up. But when you pop up, you're with a new band,
Hmm.
And nothing can ever gain momentum if you keep starting and
Oh,
stopping and
yeah.
starting and stopping.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest thing that can sabotage your music career when I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be so hard. And I'm going to turn female. I've cried a lot, okay?
I'm
A
sure there's a
lot.
ton of guys that have cried. I know John Mayer cried in his car after
Yeah.
one of his songs got rejected.
Oh,
Sure, every
yeah.
dude, no dudes that do it will admit it, but it's hard. It's gonna
It's
make it.
hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, man. But yeah, so it's just like there's it's just the persistence and the dedication and staying with something and keeping up with it even when it gets hard, even when you don't even like feel like you're good enough or you're cut out for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're totally going to see a return, and it's going to take a while, but it's going to be so worth it. So I think it's just important to not cop out and not
That would be a little
not give up.
hot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm getting it out here because, like, mostly I get a lot of questions sent to my email, and a lot of times it's my best advice for some musicians is to
Mhm.
stop complaining about
Yeah.
about things that are happening outside of your control and start focusing
Mhm.
inward. Focus inward, young one. But yeah,
Mhm.
I
It's true.
totally relate to that. So, um, I wanted to ask you real quick
Hmm.
about public perception because you wrote this blog article that I
Hmm.
really liked a lot. That was basically like, how do you make money from your music career?
Hmm.
And you talk about you make sure that you have like on your website, a professional looking photos and whatnot. Do you think it's
Hmm.
bad if a fan tries to look you up on Google, which they do,
Hmm.
and you don't have a website, you just have a Facebook fan page, and it really sucks, and then that's all you have? I mean,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's oh. I'm like, where do I start with this one? I don't even know anymore. It just doesn't look good for you if you don't have a website.
Mhm.
In an age when and where anyone can create a website right now, and it's not hard to have something that looks professional. If you
That's
don't have
yeah,
one, you've already made yourself look a little less serious than someone who does, you know?
and
Um,
lazy or scared, one of those.
yeah, I mean, any of the above. It's like you you could be the best at your art. You could be so good at it.
Hmm.
But the only thing that's going to make you stand out is looking professional at it. Because if you don't take that part seriously, then other people won't take you seriously. And the website is an absolute necessity. Your Facebook won't replace it. Your Reverb Nation won't replace it.
Yeah,
Nothing can compare to having a website.
yeah. So the lesson here is have a professional presence online and present yourself like you're serious. And which leads to my next question. This is an extremely important question that I'm trying to address more in these interviews because it all arises when and there I laugh about it because I was like, what was I thinking? But I actually commented on a YouTube video, some other YouTube video, and YouTube video comments can get pretty
Heated.
brutal. It was a video where Dave Grohl was being interviewed, and he
Okay.
was asked what his advice was to a couple. Now this is like, what is his advice to four guys in a garage? How can they make their way into the music industry? And Dave Grohl's advice. Now he prefaced it by saying, I don't know much about the music industry and where it's headed. and I don't really understand technology, but my advice is to just play live. I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, hands down. I totally think that you have to be playing out live. I mean, there are plenty of artists who are YouTube phenomenons, and make their living off of just being on YouTube. And to each his own. I mean, I don't really understand that world a lot, and I mean, I think that there's a lot of cool stuff happening in that way. But I think that it's really, if you really want to make fans for life, you have to be playing out live. Um, that's definitely how you're going to sell your merch. It's definitely how you're going to build connections with people and keep those connections for a long time. Um, I noticed, like, I'm just coming off a month now where I didn't play any shows. I just took a month off because I've just been on the road all this year, and I mean, I've noticed how much less fan engagement I'm getting on my Facebook page. Like next to no tweets on a daily basis on my Twitter, because one, I'm not promoting anything, and because one, I'm not, I'm just not out and about, so there's not as much content to like share on a daily basis. So it's just like, as soon as I hit the road starting this weekend again, I know that will kick back up, but it's just been interesting to just see, like, almost like exact opposite action on my social media, less traffic on my website, and when reviewing statistics and stuff. So if you're playing out live, I mean, it's going to increase your reach like exponentially.
Yeah. So the flame war that was ignited on the YouTube comments was based around the fact that most people took his advice as to say, just play live and don't do anything else. Now, would you have the same success if you just played live, but you didn't have a website, you didn't have interact with fans on Facebook, you didn't have an email list? It's kind of like there's this prevailing mentality out there among some musicians that all you have to do is just focus on making great music, and everything else falls into place. The business people who are douchebags will show up and do their
We'll
business
find you.
stuff. Evil marketing people will come in. You'll have to deal with them, and they'll do their job. But all you have to do is focus on making great music. What do you think about that?
I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree with that from an independent artist standpoint. The problem with that theory, you want to have your music down solid. You have to,
That's a given.
Because if you don't, the other things won't fall into place. But you just can't. You can't be in a place where you're just focusing on the music. In this day and age, because there are thousands upon thousands and maybe millions of other artists who are doing that already, and then some. They're doing the music thing, but they're also doing the social media thing. They also have the website. They're also posting YouTube videos. So I mean, you need to figure out how you're going to stand out. And if you don't have your act together, like the business. The business stuff, then you're not going to stand up. People aren't going to be able to find you. Like, they're just not going to be able to find you. And that for me is the biggest frustration. When I see artists that are so incredible, and I'm just like, oh, you're so good, but nobody knows you're good because no one can find you. No one even knows you can exist. And you have a website, but you don't even put your shows on the calendar. Just stupid, like, fundamental things like that.
Very easily correctable.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, totally. You can't just do the music. You can't. But the thing is, once you do have all your ducks in the order, and the more opportunities that come, and the bigger that you get, you'll be able to bring on people. You'll be able to bring on a booking agent. You'll be able to bring on a manager, a publicist, and pretty soon you're going to be able to. All you have to worry about is the music, because you have people who are on a team with you who can do all of the other stuff, and that's the cool part about it.
So, I like how you put that, because in essence, that means you have to earn it. You have to earn. You have to actually earn your place at that level where all you have to do is focus on the music. And I think a lot of musicians just starting out, they don't want to go through that. They don't want to go through that really freaking hard process to where you can get to that point. They want to just focus on the music, and they're also working a day job. So it's like adding fuel to the fire of like resentment about, you know, not
Right.
being heard more and not being able to take money. And
Right.
there's so much that can block them from actually taking action, you know, to get
Hmm.
through that period. Because I mean, really, we're talking about like really, you know, simple stuff. It really is not that hard to get a website set up. It is really
Hmm.
not that hard to care about your fans. You should
Right.
already. If you don't, then this is the wrong show to be watching. So I guess in a nutshell,
Hmm.
it's not enough to just make great music. You have to make great music and then some. I think that's going to
Yeah.
be our tagline for this
And
interview.
then some.
So
That's
what are
great.
your thoughts on marketing and promoting yourself? How do you feel about
I love it.
it?
I mean,
Why? Why do you love it?
honestly,
Why do you love it?
no.
Because every other musician hates it. But why do you love it?
Yeah, I mean, I geek out on that type of stuff because sometimes it's not fun, when you're doing it. It's not fun when you have to shamelessly plug yourself and annoy your Facebook friends because you're talking about another show that no one's going to like the status update and you're just going to feel stupid for even posting anything. And that kind of stuff happens all the time.
But don't fans want to
Um,
know what you're up to?
right. It's like they do, but then sometimes you're just like, do they? Do,
Oh,
do
so
they
it's just
really
self doubt.
care?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. That's self. Yeah, definitely self-doubt. But I think, it's a necessary evil. But the thing is, while marketing can sometimes be fun and most times be annoying,
Hmm.
it's not even like we've been talking about future reward and like seeing long-term like effects and things happening but taking time.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing for marketing and promotions. I'll have a show and I'll do what I can to create artwork and create the Facebook invite and connect with the other musicians to make sure that we're all working together to promote the show. And it's a lot of just like staying on people's backs and doing all those mundane day-to-day things. But then when you get to the show and you pack out the place and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, I get it.
Yeah.
This is like, it's so worth it. Like it actually works,
So
even
once
though it
it
was
works for
lame.
you, that's when you love it. It's when it doesn't
Right.
work. That's when people, hate it. I think people just like
Ditto.
we're conditioned to a lot of like shitty marketing for shitty
Yeah.
stuff that people don't need.
Right.
And it just like, when you really think about it, it's like you're promoting and marketing your music. Now, if your music is terrible, then no one want no get
That's
that
when you
out of
go.
there. But but if your music is great, or even just good and has a really great message behind it that's empowering, then
Hmm.
it's like the marketing is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's neutral. It's like a neutral thing. It's like a
Right.
tool. Like I could take a hammer and smash someone's skull, or I
Hmm.
could build a house with it. That's a really
I mean, was that planned or did you just come up with
no.
that?
I literally. This is gonna sound psycho, but I was like, I saw a hammer in my head,
Oh, that's
whap
great.
someone over the head, like Acme style. Like there's a cartoon though,
Oh
cartoon character,
yeah.
and then someone building a house. Yeah.
Wow.
So
But it's
hopefully,
right.
yeah,
It's true.
hopefully it makes it clear because I think a lot of artists they need to. That's the. I feel like. What do you feel like that's the hump that artists need to get over to go through that difficult period we were talking about, where you go from you're doing it all mostly by yourself and your mom helps out to like now you start picking up booking agents and managers. You feel like
Yeah.
that's like that's the
That's totally
doorway.
it.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, like when, back in the day when people used to be offered a record deal randomly. I mean, that's the thing. Like they had all those other things.
Well, it
You
wasn't
had.
randomly. I don't. Well, it
Well, yeah,
seems
definitely
random. I mean, those
not.
those guys that offered the record deal, they knew what they were doing. They had a
Right,
plan.
true. But I mean, when we're comparing ourselves as independent artists to that, the difference is that
Yeah.
they do have a team already in place.
Yeah.
So I totally
Exactly.
agree with you that that's the hump.
Yeah.
And I think the thing too that sometimes we forget is that marketing is really just making a whole bunch of tiny like little connections. If for me, like I was just thinking about today, someone asked me when I was going to be playing next in their city,
Yeah.
and um, well, this is a couple days ago. They asked me when I'd be playing in the city, and I told them the date. And then I was like, today, oh wait, the Facebook invite is up now. So I'm going to go back to that conversation and post a link to the Facebook invite,
Hmm.
so that they'll like it, so that they'll be in the know, and so just that little thing, and an extra reminder, and now they have like a visual representation of that event.
Hmm.
So just those little things, making those connections, all the time, whether it is you're just dropping a buzz in people's ear to let them know about the date, and then later on you're giving them more information. So
Hmm.
making those little connections, and helping to increase buzz over time. Those little things eventually culminate into like bigger things.
So marketing isn't Facebook, or
No.
marketing isn't Twitter, because I think that's what
Um,
people, most artists think of when they think of
yeah.
marketing. But do you feel like you're different than most artists, or can any musician do what you've done?
I honestly think that anyone can do this.
Genre aside, like genre of music, let's just take the genre of music
Mhm.
out. I'm just talking about, independent artist or a
Oh, so,
band, several
mhm.
musicians.
Yeah, totally. I totally feel like anyone can do it. I mean, I feel like there are some people who have more of like a natural, um, like inclination towards it.
Yeah.
It comes more naturally. And um, for me, I've always loved promotion. I've always loved it. Always, even in college, I loved telling people about events that were happening on campus
Hmm.
and stuff. So it is something that I do a little bit, probably more easily than the average person,
Okay.
just because I enjoy it more.
Hmm.
Um, but I
But you
think
could
that
still do it.
anyone can do
Yeah.
it, and it might take having to be more intentional about it. It might
Yeah.
take having to actually jot down notes of what you need to do this week in order to make sure that you're on your marketing game. But anyone can do it.
Well, how about musicians that weren't natural music talents, weren't considered remarkable, that ended up doing, great things, just from sheer tenacity? I think you could apply like the same thing to learning all these other business and marketing skills. Just basically just building your fan base and
Ditto.
selling your music.
Ditto. Yeah. I mean, anyone. Totally.
The example I was thinking of in my head wasn't a musical example. I was thinking of Charles Darwin, who actually was considered a failure as a student. And
Oh, really?
he had a
Huh.
brother who was had a higher IQ and was
Huh.
top of the line and just everything, but he ended up being the Darwin that no one knows about. So
Huh.
it says a lot. It says a lot
Yeah.
for because you were touching on natural propensities and natural talent. Like
Hmm.
some people have like a natural talent for communicating, like you, or you
Hmm.
actually you have a natural inclination towards like seeing something grow, which I'm kind of actually the same way, which I think is what attracted
Hmm.
me to entrepreneurship too.
Hmm.
But there's a whole system that runs like outside of just like what you're good at, and it's like never let what naturally comes to you be an excuse for not
Right.
doing what you want to do. I just love that
Right.
you touched on that last point.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I always think about too about like, I don't know, my sister and I, we're kind of the same person, but we're also night and day. And I never thought that if anyone were to pursue music for a living, I always thought it would be my sister, because I'm the introvert and she's like very outspoken, very all over the place, just very like bubbly and everything like that. And so I was always surprised, the more things started to develop for me in music. I was just like, this doesn't even make any sense. I don't understand. But for what I guess what I'm trying to say is, for me, the hard thing that came from me was learning how to be in front of people and learning how to um, be more vocal about things. And I think that sometimes we can say, okay, we're not so good at something, and so then that can limit us from all the other things that we are good at.
Hmm.
So I think it's just important to remember that, and to not let those things kind of keep you back from your future.
And not be a pansy.
Yeah.
Bottom line, just buck up.
Ditto. Pretty much.
So I have a fun question. I actually
Yeah.
forget to ask. I think I forgot to ask it in my last interview. I can't remember. But what's your favorite album, and what would your life be like if it never existed?
Oh, this is hard.
Oh, you want to cry if it's hard.
Don't be pansy, Joy. Don't be
Yeah,
pansy.
yeah.
I feel like I'm one of the worst people to ask this question, because I don't listen to a lot of music. This sounds really bad, I know.
What?
But I know. I
Really?
don't. I actually
Wow.
don't. Yeah, I listen to a lot of talk radio for as long as I can remember. I don't I just get overwhelmed by how much music is out there, so I kind of
Oh
have
yeah.
my
Yeah.
staples
Yeah.
and that's it. But probably my probably my favorite album and the first album I really like genuinely cared about when I started pursuing music, and this is right out of college, was an album by one of my favorite artists, Sarah Groves, and it's called Add to the Beauty. And I know that it'd be completely different if I hadn't listened to that album because that was when I first started like listening to songwriting,
Yeah.
uh, not just music but songwriting and how she crafted her words,
Yeah.
and it made me think about the power of words and almost the power that artists have in their hand when they're writing something and it's going out to a lot of ears.
Yeah.
So yeah, check her out, Sarah Groves, Sara.
Oh, nice. Nice. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so that's interesting. That's interesting that you claim you don't listen to a lot of music, but at the same time, and I think about it. There was like a time period where I just listened to audiobooks. I wasn't
Audiobooks.
audiobooks. It was like I only had so much time in the day, and if you
Hmm.
put music on for background, that's one thing. But then I would just always have, my earbuds in, and then I'd be listening to different audiobooks
Yeah,
of
yeah.
all sorts. So it's yeah, very very interesting. So, uh, this has been an awesome. This has been an awesome interview, Joy. Thanks again
Right.
so much for coming on and sharing all of your
Yeah, thanks for
knowledge, like
having
just
me.
from email lists to how to not be a wuss to be professional. I mean, there's a lot of great points that we hit up on here. I think that um, if any independent artist could listen to one interview that we've done and just have all the bases covered, just like the foundations of making a sustainable music career today, not in the 1970s, not in the
Right,
60s, but
right.
now. I think this is the interview to watch. So thanks again for
Yay,
coming on.
I did it.
Yeah.
That's
80s freeze
great.
frame. My fist went out of the frame. You didn't see that.
Okay, just
Okay.
keep mine in.
All
Yeah,
right.
thanks for having me.
No problem.
All right, bye.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Seeds of Music. We had Joy Ike on the show, full-time independent artist from Pennsylvania, talking about how her email list has ended up being more valuable than any CDs that she sells at her live shows. So make sure to check out her links below and give your support. And next, sign up for the Seeds of Music email newsletter. You'll get updates on new interviews, vlog episodes, and articles, plus special newsletter content to help you build a bigger fan base and sell more music online. And once again, we do have an iTunes podcast. So head over to iTunes, search for Seeds of Music, Rise Above the Noise, and subscribe to that to get all the latest episodes downloaded instantly. And please, please, please leave a rating and a review. That would help the show grow so much. And also, if you really enjoyed this interview, make sure to like and share it on Facebook and tweet it out to all your Twitter followers to spread the message far and wide. And lastly, comment on the video. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on these interviews. Do you know someone who you would like to see on the show, or is that person you? Remember, I've got an email, kyle.seedthemusic@gmail.com, open door policy there. Send me an email and we'll talk. And remember, we are the future of music.